but there we go. We are going live. Nomad X community, Facebook family, everyone who's out there, another day, another live session, and even more important, another very, very special guest we are welcoming today. His name is Jordan, and Jordan is pretty much spot on with his business model at the moment. We just catched up on that a little bit, but Jordan, I'd say the easiest way to make that happen and to start this conversation is if you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and especially also about what you do for a living.
Yeah, my name is Jordan Carroll. I am the remote job coach, so I help transition companies and individuals to remote work. Specifically, and most recently, been really working on helping people within their entire job search. So figuring out what remote job will be good for them, figuring out how to stand out, figuring out how to build a personal brand and network with the right people and companies to land a remote job. And I've been working remotely since 2014. So it's not something that's new to me, but now with the state of the world, we're seeing a lot more people who want to transition, who actually need to transition because of the current times, and now companies as well. So that's in a very short breath what I do, and I appreciate you having me on today.
Awesome, man. It's a pleasure to have you on here. I know what you're doing great things out there. And as mentioned before, your business right now is more spot on than ever before. Based on what's happening out there, but let's go a little bit back to start with. Like you said, you're doing this since 2014, right? So it's about the 6 years.
I've been working remotely since 2014.
Remotely since 2000. Okay, cool. So based on that, what triggered you to make the switch out of the corporate world into the remote world and going completely digital?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think what's unique about my situation was that the first time that I worked remotely, it was for a big corporation. So I was working big corporate at IBM in 2013, and my first taste of remote work was because of a snow day. So it was just mandatory. Like we couldn't physically make it to the office. I had an hour and a half commute, and for me, there was just obviously no way to get to the office, so we got to stay home. And at that time in my life, it was like a buffer for my hangovers. So like I had an extra hour and a half to sleep in a little bit more before my first meeting, right? Mm-hmm. What you don't realize is that there is a learning curve when you go from going to an office to working remotely. There's a big learning curve, not only within the communication, but within your productivity, within your self-motivation, like every little piece of that. Mm-hmm. So over the course of the next 6 years, I worked remotely for IBM for a lot more a time after that. And then I ended up working for different startups remotely, and I've worked for my own businesses remotely. So cumulatively, I've worked remotely for 6 years, but that's been in all different industries and all different types of roles and things that I've done. And that's been the cool part, is been able to experience remote work in a company that has 2 people, a company that has 200 people, a company that has 400,000 people. And that's really been the interesting part for me. That's given me kind of a unique vantage point, because all of those positions I was able to get without like the formal application process. I got them all through networking. So that's really what I try to teach people, is that there are remote jobs out there, but they're largely dependent. The opportunities are dependent on your ability to get connected to the right people.
Right. Awesome, bro. That's so cool. So 6 years ago, you made that shift for yourself. You just said you worked yourself through all these different job situations, from super small to really, really big. When came that switch for yourself that you are like, okay, I want to help others to do exactly what I am doing?
Yeah, that was about 2 or 3 years ago. It was really what I noticed was that people were asking me the same questions. And you may get this too, Ollie. You probably get questions all the time about like how you live your lifestyle, right? Does that happen to you?
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, it happens. It happens all the time.
I would have to think that's one of the reasons why you created your business, right? Is because
Right.
people are asking how
Right.
that's done and how people
Right.
can co-live and how people can move across the world. So the same was for
Right.
me. So people were asking me like, hey, how did you get a job that you're working remotely? How are you traveling? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? And eventually I was like, okay, well, there's something here. If enough people are asking me how to do this, I felt like it was obvious. It was so intuitive to me. It was like, oh, this is easy. Like, I'm getting these remote jobs. Like, it was my priority. I was like, I'm not going to work in an office. Like, that was
Right.
not an option for me. So every
Right.
job that I looked for was remote. So for me, it was like super obvious that that was what I was going to do. And then it wasn't as obvious to other people how to do that. And I'm just realizing like it's just one of my skills. It's just it's something that I intuitively have been able to do. And I think as far as job searches go, like we never learn that growing up. Like we never learn in university or in school like how to conduct a job search.
Right.
When you add in the layer of like looking for something remote, there's a whole nother piece of complexity that you're adding into it that just makes it difficult. So I created a system around all that based on how I did it, and I was like, okay, this actually works.
That's awesome. That's really cool, and it's probably exactly what the world needs right now. And obviously, the world needed it before, but right now it needs it kind of like more than ever. You've been talking about, you set up a system, right? You said, okay, I'm kind of like using a system to do the transformation. Who do you help with that system the most? Are this more likely like entrepreneurs, or are these companies, or how do I get entitled to become one of your clients?
Entitled, that's funny. Well, I only do work with certain people, but I think it's people that are committed to transferring their lifestyle to a remote lifestyle. And that doesn't mean traveling. That means it could be someone who just wants to work at home, right? And I work more specifically, I work with individuals who mostly have been working a corporate 9-to-5, or have been working in an office type environment, or they've worked remote before, but now they're not working remote. These people are usually high performers. They've always achieved a lot of things within their roles, but for whatever reason, their company doesn't allow them to work remotely. And they have those knowledge skills, they have the transferable skills to be able to work remotely, but they just don't know where to start. And these people that are really good at their jobs, but they're just not sure how to conduct a job search, because again, we're not taught that. So it's like anything. It's like anything else, man. Like if you want to learn how to do something, learn from someone else, right? It accelerates your ability to do that. And then more recently, I partner with other agencies and consultancies to help companies do this, because they have, I know I have a pretty healthy network within the remote nomadic community, and being able to partner with some of those people who can fulfill and deliver and help companies build remote work policies and can help train their management and help get their people and their systems running. That's been a priority for me, because I've had companies reach out to me and say, hey, like we're moving remote. We know that this is your thing. Can you help us? Like, like let me facilitate the resources and make sure I bring in the right type of people. And that's been really fun too. So I'm working with 3 companies on that right now.
Yeah. Awesome. That's so cool. You touch based on something which I think is really interesting, because you just mentioned remote work doesn't have specifically something to do with traveling, right? This is not remote work doesn't mean digital nomadism. It means work from wherever you want to work, which can be absolutely like your home, and you don't need to be like a traveler. And I personally think that we are going to a massive shift right now, because before it was the corporate world and it was like us crazy digital nomads, and it was always like this thing, like, oh, go travel the world, live the laptop lifestyle, hang out on the beautiful beaches. And now I think based on the situation, we're switching, that people are starting to realize I can work from home. It's definitely possible. And I don't need to be a crazy traveler and sell all my stuff back home and go 5 times around the world. No, I can just enjoy my piece of freedom and work from home, as it started for you in a similar way. What do you think about that? Where do we go with that?
Yeah, well, I think there's some crazy folks like you and I who do love to travel, right? Regardless, there's going to always be a subset of remote workers who are nomads, travelers, stay mads. Like there's so many different terms that we could use for these types of people. Here's what I think. Having the freedom and flexibility to do whatever's right for you is the most important. If you want to travel and you want to go experience different parts of the world, to have that option is fucking amazing, man. Like to be able to pick up and just go and still have your job intact and still be able to make money, that's a pretty good gig. I don't think it's completely necessary. Some people are just going to want to be able to be at home with their kids. Right. And I work with people on both ends of the spectrum. I have someone right now that I'm working with who has kids and wants to literally just be able to stay home and be able to tend to them. The other person is like, I want to go travel around the world. I want to go to Thailand. I want to go to Asia. And I don't want that to be a problem with my employer. Now there's going to be a different way that we conduct that job search because that second person needs to have a company who's going to be okay with her being in Asia, for instance, right? But at the same time, I think what we get to is like, there's no right or wrong way to remote. Like there's just your way. And I think that that's totally fine. And I have no judgment for anybody on like how they want to conduct their remote lifestyle.
Exactly. It became such a big term, and now it feels like we're all involved into it. You said you just said you work with someone who just wants to work from home. He just wants to spend more time with his kids and with family. What is like the first big step? Where do you see what's the biggest obstacle to overcome when you help people to transition into the remote work?
It's not sexy. It's mindset. It's belief systems.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, man, and people overlook this kind of stuff, but it's how you think about the world, the assumptions that you make, and the belief systems that you have. Most people that I work with, within the first week, we need to deconstruct all of their belief systems around finding remote work and being able to do this. Like that's the first thing. It's not sexy like, hey, here's a bunch of job boards, let's go like apply and make this happen like in the first week. It doesn't happen that way. Right. We have to literally reprogram people's minds to know that this is possible, that there are roles out there that they can do, that they, when they commit to it, can actually do it. It's like it's all deconstructing that. And people have, what I've noticed as well is people have a lot of assumptions about either, like I hear this one all the time. It's like, well, I'm not technical, so I can't work remotely because all remote roles are technical. It's like, no, that's not the case. I'm not a technical person. I've never been a technical person. So like getting them to shed those beliefs and then create a new belief system of what's possible is the start. And then from there, we go into kind of more technical stuff of like, okay, well, what job roles can you do and how do we establish the keywords and the phrases for our searches? And a lot of people use their words. They use their terms. They don't use the company's terms, which is a mistake. So we have to do an align their words to company words. And then we work on messaging and personal branding, LinkedIn, resume, like how to apply, how to target companies. And people often are very broad. They want to be a jack of all trades, but a company doesn't want someone who can half do everything. They want someone who can fully do something. So you have to be very targeted. So there's like all these little layers of ways that people were also doing things before that don't work. And that's what we have to change.
Awesome. That's so interesting. What you just said, I've never heard that before. I've never heard someone else saying it. You know, like that people want to go super broad when they do their job search, but obviously they need to go super target, which we do in the offline world. We know that, right? We would not, we kind of like, we go very specific for a job because we're super familiar with the process. But I feel like that's something not just on the job search side online, people struggling with, generally speaking, by going online, because there are so many opportunities. you want to go like super broad, like it's not just by searching your job, it's by how you do your marketing, it's by how you set up everything you do online, generally speaking, because everything is so tempting. So I believe like to have someone like you who guides you through that and filters out what's important and what's not important to go really niche is pretty much essential. So I think that's super cool, bro. I think like, again, I can just say like big respect for the job you're doing at the moment. And thanks for sharing all that. So guys, if you're watching this, and I see we got a decent amount of people dropping in and out, but if you have to have some questions for Jordan, and if you want to know more, just drop them in the comments. We make sure to answer all of them either now or afterwards, or if you want to know how to go remote and what it actually takes to do the step, because I know we have a lot of people in this community who are kind of like doing this transition since a while or on about to do it, especially right now. What would be, from your perspective, Jordan, what would be like your number one advice if someone wants to do that step and go remote? And I say remote, not going digital nomadism, now go remote. What's the number one advice?
Well, I guess the number one advice would be make sure that you actually want to, and it's actually the right thing for you. A lot of people, so here's another position that I stand. A lot of people feel entitled to have a remote job. And a lot of people feel like they would be good remotely. But the reality is not everybody deserves to work remotely. Like it's a tough truth, but
that's a statement.
Well, they don't, right? Like here's what's interesting. What's happened is like, because of this coronavirus, I get hundreds of messages a week about this stuff. And a lot of it is filled with people that are entitled, thinking, oh, because of the circumstances, I need a remote job and I deserve one. So how do I get one? And it's like, it doesn't just work like that. Like you build up your leverage as an employee, and you build up your stock as an individual over years. So like the people that are in the best prime position to take advantage of this shift of work, of how work is now becoming more flexible, are people that have been really solid employees at companies who have had great performance, who have the knowledge skills already to work a remote position. But if you've been an Uber driver for your whole life and you're expecting to just pop in and find a remote job and do well, like recalibrate the expectations, right? So I would just say the number one tip is just self-awareness. Like the more you can be self-aware about your actual situation and the types of positions that you'd actually be good at, and hey, do you have recommendations and referrals from people as a good employee, and are you honest enough with yourself about how good of an employee you are? Because some people miss the boat on the honesty train.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something I agree on. Absolutely. What was your biggest learning curve? Or let me say the other way around. What was your biggest fuck up? If you could go back and turn back the time, what would you do different?
Not underestimate the learning curve.
Okay.
So again, I was using it when I first started working remotely, and I'm not proud to admit this, but I was using it as like nap time. I was using it as like hangover buffer. Because I could work from home, I'd fucking roll out of bed. I wouldn't even roll out of bed. I'd just grab my computer in my bed, which is a huge mistake. Don't work from your bed. Like that is one of my biggest mistakes that I made, was like I made a habit to work from bed, which makes it easy to nap, to sleep, to doze off during calls. But I wasn't in a good position in my life at that point either. Like I wasn't who I am now, or I wasn't taking the steps. So I think for me, it was just, I thought it was the same thing, just you doing it somewhere else. But I was not at my optimal performance because I didn't set up my environment. So I'd say between my number one tip of how to work remotely productively and my biggest fuck up was just not creating an environment for success when I first started.
I love that. And I love that you are mentioning that. And I think it's one of the biggest challenge a lot of people facing at the moment because of going remote without even knowing how to go remote. And to be honest, it is a topic which I've been discussing with a lot of people. And I know that from myself, when we are in Bali, it's a bit different because at least there my office space is a separate building. So I have to go up and get dressed and go into that building, which is good, like, but then finding myself in situations like right now, right here, we're living in it's a very nice place, but it's a flat, like my sleeping room is the next door, right? So I really need to force myself in the morning, as you said, not just to grab my laptop and go behind, no, just go up, get a shower, do some sport, grab some breakfast, and then go to work. Because if you don't do that, it's not going to work out, and you're not productive, and you're kind of like, you start to losing it along the way. I've seen that many, many times.
I think that's a great point you made there. And that's another thing I would add into part of the programming that I do with people is looking at their time management, their habits. What are the things that they're doing in their life every day, and reevaluating like what is important that you're doing. What do you need to let go of, do less of? Because especially when you start a remote job search and you're committing time each week to do this, I recommend spending an hour a day. So if if the way that you're conducting yourself and you're not like totally optimized in the way that you're waking up, you're working out, you're doing the things you need to do, then you're not going to show up in that search very well, and it's not gonna stick. And I work with a lot of people who are also working full-time too. So they have to try to fit that in there outside of their job, outside of their normal routine. So I think it's really important. It goes beyond just like the tips, tactics, strategies of a remote job search, but you actually need to have an optimal way of living your life first.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Spot on, bro. Definitely. Jordan, where do people find you if they want to get in touch with you? What's the easiest way to reach out to you? Do we have a website, Facebook page, Instagram, or how should we contact you?
Yeah, theremotejobcoach.com.
Theremotejobcoach.com. I believe we have that link, but you might want to send it to afterwards, and we'll make sure to post that into the comments. So guys, this is where you're going to find Jordan, and as much value as is behind his programs and what he does for a living, I think we all figured that, and we are all learning it in probably like the hard way right now. So Jordan, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for sharing the value bombs here and giving us insights. What's next for you? It's probably a stupid question because I like to ask that to everyone, but I know it's unpredictable, but what are the plans?
What's interesting is that this year actually became a slow mad year for me. I've been traveling, the past 2 years, I've been traveling pretty ruthlessly every month to different countries, things like that. So I've been in 15 or so countries, 5 continents in 2 years. And now I'm like, I really want to be somewhere. So I'm in Playa del Carmen, Mexico right now. And that's where I intend to live. So I'm here, and this coronavirus has made that even easier. And again, we were talking before the show, but it's like, it's very eerie because this is spring break time. And this is one of the big locations for like U.S. spring breakers, like Cancun and Del Carmen. And there's no one here. It's a ghost. It's so cool.
Wow.
It's actually really nice. So I'm enjoying it here, man. I'm gonna live it up. I'm gonna keep going to the beach until they close it. I was there this morning. What about you?
It's a bit unpredictable, but as I said before, we're in Frankfurt at the moment, so we're gonna stay in Germany. We're hoping and looking forward till Bali gets opened up again, because we're still having, we kind of like made the decision to spend the time in Germany while this is all happening, but we have everything in Bali. We have, even our dogs are in Bali still, so we have the house there, we got all our stuff in Bali. So it's kind of like sitting here, and I love the word you just used, slow madding. taking it easy, waiting till it's over, following the rules, making the most out of it, and doing a massive bunch of Zoom calls and video calls and Facebook Lives, and because now we have time for. So and then we take it straight from there.
Awesome, man. Exactly. Well, I appreciate you having me on the show, and I'm actually streaming more too, and you'll have to come on to mine. I
will. Just drop me a message, and we're scheduling an appointment.
Amazing, buddy. Appreciate it.
Jordan, thank you so much. Good luck with everything. Stay safe. It was a pleasure, and we stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Appreciate it.